Hey, welcome back to the Myth of Hockey. I just want to really quickly talk about Dominic Hasek's year of 1997-98. We have, and you've heard this, and I've heard this, that Hasek was a dominant goalie. And this particular season, he had 33 wins, 23 losses, and 13 ties. His goals against average was 209, and his save percentage was 932, and he had 13 shutouts. That sounds amazing. But what if we break it down, game by game, situation by situation? Was he really that great in this particular season? Let's rock. So this is really cool and really fascinating. In his 33 wins, this is what happened, and this is what you weren't told. 17 of those 33 wins, for 51%, his team won by 3 or more goals. They won by 3 or more goals. 17 of them, 51%. His team gave him 4.3 goals on average goal support, or run support as in baseball for pitchers. This is a gigantic number. And he only faced 31.1 shots per game. Not 36, not 39, not 44 to be the dominator. 31. A couple of shots above average. So how can you possibly say in 51% of these 33 wins, he was the key ingredient? He wasn't. In 5 wins, they won by 2 or more. The first game, there was only 16 saves, so he didn't steal that game. 3-1 lead halfway through the game, so he didn't steal that game. His team gave him run support. 3-0 lead, his team gave him more run support. 2-0 lead halfway through the game, so obviously they went into a defensive posture like these other games did. The only game that you can say he stole so far of 17 plus 5 gets us to 22 of 33 was one empty net game. Only one game with an empty net. So you can say so far 1 of 22 of the 33 wins he stole. Okay, so that leaves 11 wins left. Okay, so 22, just a tally, he's only stolen 1 of 22 so far. So that leaves 11 games left. 11 of them, these are all 1-goal games. 5 of those 1-goal games were come from behind victories by the Sabres. First game, Hasek allowed 3 goals on 23 shots. Sabres tied it late and won it in OT, so he didn't steal that game. They blew a 2-goal lead in the third, so he didn't steal that game. He actually blew the game. His team had to come from behind. Game number 3 also blew a 1-goal lead. Buffalo had to score too late to win, so he didn't steal that game. Buffalo, 2 in the third, 31 shots. He didn't steal that game because, again, his team came from behind. And the 5th game, Buffalo had to score too late in the third with only 29 shots, so he didn't steal that game. So now we're up to 27, only 1 stolen game. Of the 6 games remaining, 6 left. One of them, Hasek gave up 4 goals on 26, so he didn't steal that game. Only 20 saves in this game, so he obviously didn't steal that game. This game was 1-1. Buffalo scored with 2:25 to go in the game to win it. Hasek had 30 saves. This is a maybe, a big M for that one. Because again, the hero scored late with 2:25 to go and only 30 saves. Not 39, not 47. This one, the shots were 37-35, and the Sabres won 2-1. Now, obviously the other goalie played pretty darn good, right? So maybe he stole that game, but let's give it to him. 42 saves in this game. He was obviously did his job. And 33 saves in this one game. So there's 1, 2 for sures. So let's give him 2 more for sures. And for fun, I'm going to throw in these 2 maybes. But those are asterisks for 5 stolen games. 5 of 33 people. Not 27, not 31 that you probably thought or what you believed. Amazing what happens when we don't cherry pick the stats. We actually break the games down 1 by 1 by 1 by 1 by 1. It gets juicier. Of the 33 wins against the bottom 8 teams in the NHL, and trust me, they were the bottom. They were some really bad teams of these 8. Here's what happened. 15 wins. So 15 wins of his 33 were against bottom feeders. Almost 50%. One loss. And look at these stats. This is what pads a goalie's stats when he plays for a good defensive team. This team was better than average. By just what I said to you a minute ago, 4.3 goals, they could score. And look at these numbers. Do you think this is all Hasek against the bottom 8 teams that stunk? This is huge. 15 wins of 33. This is also key. In my other episodes, you can see why this is huge. 25 of the 33 of his wins, they scored first. Most of those, many of those were in the first period. They had, and that, think how key and critical that is. Because what happens, you're all hockey people, what happens when a team scores first? They go into defensive postures. So 25 of the 33 wins, Sabres scored first. 20 of the 33 were at home. So when you get last change, when you can match lines, put out defensive postures in your own end, this is also a huge number. And how important, and this one right here, proves the systems dictate outcomes more than the goalie does, because home ice proves it. Now look at this. What about his 23 losses that season? Against the top 4 teams in the league, the best 4 teams, 886, 311, and he went 1-8. That right there shows you how critical and how important the insulation and the protection is that the defense and the forwards provide. They're the ones that control the quality shots. Goalies don't control that. So look at the difference. Add 2 more teams to the top 4 to get top 6. 2 wins, 11 losses. Again, bad stats. Add 2 more teams to the top 6 to get top 8. 6 wins, 14 losses for 903 and 270. How critical were the systems and the protection? Forgot to mention the top 8 you saw before. Of these 6, one was a 5-4 win, so he didn't steal that game because he gave up a ton of goals. 5-0, so he didn't steal that game. His team scored 5. His team scored 5-2, won by 3. His team scored 3 goals. He didn't steal that game. His team won by 3 again, so he didn't steal that game. The only one that you can say he stole of the 6 against the top 8 was he stopped 30 of 31 against Philly. Okay, of the 13 shutouts, I'll bet you think that they were all 1-0 games, maybe 2-0 at tops, and because, the Sabres were just an average team, right? Wrong. This is what happened in 8 of the 13 shutouts that Hasek got. His team dominated. They won 5-0, 4-0, 4-0, 4-0, 3-0, 3-0, 3-0, 3-0. This is 8 games where his team scored an average of 3.62 goals a game, which is really high in the NHL. An average. They got big leads, early leads, and just hung on. You're all hockey people. What do teams do when they get the lead? Because most of these games, I think 7 of them, they scored in the first period, or at very least had early leads going into the halfway through the game. So they just threw up a brick wall. It pads his stats because now shots come from the perimeter because now Sabres are just trying to, just hold them off. So this right here, these 13 shutouts, when you see that, you think, oh my God, what a year Hasek had. So that leaves 5 shutouts left. One of the shutouts, there was only 20 shots on him. So that's not going to count as Hasek being the star of that show. Second game, they scored early in the first, and Sabres scored really early in the second to have a 2-0 lead. I'm not going to give him that game as the most important person of that shutout. I'm going to give Hasek, of the 13, I'm going to give him 3 where you can say he was the most important player on his team. Only 3 of the 13 can you say were because of this guy. So in conclusion, 97-98 wasn't all Hasek. It wasn't a great goalie playing on an average, below average team, people. That's the myth you've heard. The myth I've heard is that Hasek stole 97-98 with one of the best statistical seasons ever. But how did we get to those stats? That's cherry picking. When we look at the final stats, the 932 and the 209, that's cherry picking. That's only 2. You have to look at every single game.